Have you ever felt that strange pull in your mind? The feeling that someone knows more about your life than they should? Not a ghost, not a shadow, a person. Someone who watches you quietly, learns your habits, and slips into the unnoticed spaces of your daily routine. Stalking isn't rare anymore. Recent crime analysis shows that thousands of people are monitored every single day without realizing it. Some are followed on their way home. Some have their photos collected without permission. Others are tracked through the smallest digital footprints. Tonight's stories come from people who lived through moments that changed the way they view safety forever. Ordinary lives twisted by dangerous obsession. Strangers who became nightmares. Familiar streets that suddenly felt like hunting grounds. These are 3 real stalker horror stories you'll never forget. Stories that remind us how easily a life can be watched, studied, and invaded without a single door being broken. I was 24 at the time, a nursing student juggling long classes, clinical shifts, and quiet evenings in my small apartment. I wasn't the type to overshare online. I barely posted anything, kept my routine simple, and lived in a neighborhood where even stray cats seemed polite. That's why, at first, I didn't think much of the white sedan. The first night I saw it, it was parked near the entrance of my building. The engine was off, and a man sat inside completely still. Too still. When I glanced in his direction, he shifted slightly, almost like he'd been watching me and didn't want me to know. I told myself I was imagining things. The next night, I saw the same sedan again. Different spot, same silhouette inside. Then I started seeing it everywhere. By my bus stop in the morning, near the grocery store in the afternoon, slowly cruising past campus when I left class. It didn't matter if I changed my schedule slightly. The car always appeared. I learned later that stalkers often study their victims first, silently tracking patterns before making any move. At the time, I just felt a creeping dread, like someone was quietly peeling back the layers of my life. One evening, I was sitting in a cafe studying when I felt someone staring at me. I looked up, and my stomach dropped. The white sedan was across the street, but the man wasn't inside anymore. He was standing on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, staring straight through the window at me. No expression, no blink, nothing. I tried to keep calm, but my hands shook for the rest of the night. When the cafe closed, I called a friend to walk me home. It felt embarrassing, but something in me screamed that if I walked alone, I wouldn't make it home safely. We were halfway down the street when the white sedan pulled out from a side road behind us. It followed slowly, keeping just enough distance to pretend it wasn't tailing us. But I knew. The moment we reached my building, the car sped up and disappeared around a corner. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I found a piece of paper slipped under my apartment door. Neatly written. No name. The blue sweater looked beautiful on you. Wear it again. The blue sweater. The one I had worn yesterday. When I walked home alone, my hands went numb. Someone had been close enough to watch me walk home, then close enough to slip a note under my locked apartment door. I went to the police, but without anything concrete, there wasn't much they could do. Still, I changed everything. My routes, my class times, the cafes I visited. I never walked anywhere alone, but the sedan kept finding me. At the grocery store parking lot, across from the laundromat. Drifting past my campus at walking speed. Every day, I felt my world shrinking. Then, one afternoon, an officer recognized the car parked near my building and ran the plates. The man behind the wheel was pulled over and questioned. When they searched his car, they found a notebook. My notebook, in a way. Inside were pages filled with entries about me, my apartment number, my class schedule, the time I usually left home, the time I usually came back, where I liked to sit in the cafe, which days I walked alone. He had been following me for over 6 weeks. When they asked him why, he simply said he felt connected to me and was waiting for the right moment to finally approach. The police believed that moment was going to be soon, too soon. When I first moved into my apartment, I loved how quiet it was. No loud neighbors, no traffic noise, no surprises. I worked long hours, so coming home to silence felt like a blessing. 2 months later, that silence started feeling wrong. It began with tiny things, so small I convinced myself I was just tired. A kitchen drawer left open when I could have sworn I closed it. My phone charger lying on the floor instead of the nightstand. A picture frame turned slightly, just enough to be noticeable. I told myself I was being paranoid. After all, who would break into an apartment and only rearrange things? Then one night, I came home and found my bedroom window wide open. I always checked it before leaving, always, and my apartment was on the 3rd floor. There was no way someone climbed in from outside. That's when fear finally settled in my chest, heavy and cold. I changed the locks the very next morning. The locksmith even joked, "New place, old tenants, could be anything." I laughed with him, but deep down, something felt wrong. 2 days later, I found a note tucked under my welcome mat. "Why did you change the locks?" My body went cold instantly. Someone had been inside my home. Someone who felt entitled to be there. I bought a cheap security camera that same night and hid it behind a plant in my living room. I didn't expect to catch anything. I just wanted peace of mind. What I got instead was the most terrifying footage I've ever seen. A woman, unknown, dressed in black, unlocking my front door with a key. She didn't rush. She wasn't nervous. She moved like she'd done it dozens of times. She wandered around the apartment, touched objects gently, opened my fridge, looked at my photos, walked into my bedroom. At one point, she sat on my couch and just stared into the room, like she was imagining herself living there instead of me. I couldn't breathe watching it. I showed the footage to the police the next morning. They ran her face through their records and found her quickly. She used to live in my apartment. She had never returned her spare key, and according to her old landlord, she'd been emotionally unstable and had refused to move out when her lease ended. She told officers that she believed I was occupying her space, and she wanted to make sure I wasn't damaging her home. But the worst footage wasn't the one I showed the police. It was the one recorded while I was asleep. She entered quietly in the middle of the night, walked into my bedroom, and just stood there, directly over me, watching me sleep for nearly a minute before leaving. If the camera hadn't caught her, I would have never known she'd been inches from my face. It still scares me to think how many nights she might have been there before I realized anything was wrong. I used to post everything online, study updates, cafe photos, weekend trips, even small things like my morning walks. It felt harmless. I liked the idea of sharing my day with friends and strangers who enjoyed the same thing. But things changed the day the comments started. At first, it was small, little messages from anonymous accounts saying things like, "You looked beautiful today." I brushed it off, thinking it was just someone being weird online. Then another comment appeared a day later. "Why did you eat alone? I was there too." That one hit differently. I hadn't posted anything about where I'd eaten. I blocked the account. 3 more just like it popped up by the end of the week. Soon, the comments turned into messages. Long, unsettling paragraphs from unknown numbers. "Nice walk tonight. Why did you change your route?" I felt my stomach twist every time my phone buzzed. Someone wasn't guessing. They were watching. One night, I received a text that made my skin crawl. "I'm behind you." I spun around so fast I almost tripped. But nothing looked out of place. Just people walking, chatting, living their lives. I told myself I was being paranoid, even though everything inside me screamed I wasn't. A few days later, the situation escalated into something I still think about whenever I walk alone. I woke up to a notification that I'd received a video message. I opened it. It was footage of me, walking home from the library. The camera was shaky, zoomed in from behind bushes like someone crouching low, trying not to be seen. I could hear the person breathing softly, almost excitedly while recording. That's the moment I realized this wasn't online harassment anymore. This was physical stalking, planned, deliberate, and escalating. With help from the university, I filed a report. A digital forensics team started tracing the accounts that had been messaging me. And finally, after weeks of fear and sleepless nights, they found a match. It was a classmate, someone I barely noticed, someone I'd never spoken to outside group assignments. When the police searched his laptop, they found dozens of videos of me, walking, studying, eating lunch, going to class. He had screenshots of every post I ever made, every photo I uploaded, every location I tagged. He kept a notebook, too, filled with dates, times, and notes about my habits. He had been following me for 9 months without me even realizing. The part that still scares me. They said he wasn't planning to stop anytime soon. If these stories taught us anything, it's that danger isn't always loud or violent. Sometimes it moves quietly, blending into your routine, waiting for the perfect opportunity to step into your life. Real stalkers don't need permission, warning, or logic. They just need access. And once they latch onto someone, they rarely let go willingly. Tell me in the comments which story unsettled you the most. And if you want more true horror stories that explore the darker side of real life, make sure you subscribe so you never miss what comes next. Stay aware, stay sharp, and trust that uneasy feeling, because it might be the only warning you get.